Hey, Blake, you raise your hand next. You want to jump on? Then we'll try to get to you, Michael, right after.
Got a couple questions for you. One, curious how you think about retention. Is this a product that someone uses once or twice a year, because people only travel a couple times a year? So is it like an Airbnb retention type model? And are there any levers that you have found to improve retention or engagement? And then the second piece of it is how you think about the KPIs and org design around those KPIs? Do you have like a supply side of the business that owns supply side metrics, demand side that owns demand side metrics, or I come from the Uber world, so very used to like a GM type of model. Is that something that you've explored, or how do you think about that?
Yeah, so actually, um, given that we're a business that serves a lot of folks who are travelers and a lot of folks going to events, we don't have it's a lot harder for us to have retention as like a top line metric. I'm In that regard, I'm jealous of products like Uber Eats, where you might I think I used it 3 times on Sunday. Um, and so you think of like daily usage, this is like 3 times in one day, right? With Bounce, if we build a great product, then we'll hope that we're increasing our odds that the user will use us on their next trip or their next event. And so, yeah, we don't have the same luxury as other products as having sort of super tight. Like we ship this today, and then the next day we see results. We have to track retention over a much longer period of time. So we'll look at companies like I think Airbnb and their S1, they track cohorts on a yearly basis. And so we started doing the same thing, but we actually ignored it until a year or two ago because when the pandemic hit, that just irregularized all of the data. And if someone traveled in the pandemic once, like they might not travel in the pandemic again, or it might be like a year later when really they're usually like a month traveler. So we kind of just said, all right, user acquisition is the primary metric that we're going to focus on. And then finally, after things started normalizing, we started paying attention to it more. First by tracking cohorts, because that was all we could do. And then by shipping experiments that were unfortunately due to our constraints much more long. You ship something and then you look back at the data 6 months later. And then you also asked about the GM model. We I've thought about the GM model a bit. We've been able to scale really broad without GMs. GMs are going to be expensive to staff a GM in each new market. I think we're starting to think about things more at a regional level. If we stick someone who's just a regional expert on a bunch of territories, can they move the needle by enough to pay for their salary 10 times over? So I think that's the level we're at right now.